Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the MFFL Nation Show. I'm here today with a very special guest, a Minnesota Timberwolves diehard fan, Wilder Adams. Wilder, how's it going, my man?
Hey, my friend, I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I
Sure.
definitely love covering the Timberwolves all the time, but I think, with the propaganda that I shove into the Timberwolves media sphere, I think it's good to pull my head out of the weeds a little bit and talk about another team, man. So I was thrilled to get that invitation from you so we could talk Mavericks.
Yeah, of course, and I promise I won't bring up the 2024 Western Conference Finals. I know it's I know.
My laughing right now is like it's a trauma reaction. That's what it is. So, yeah.
I mean, Ant did get his payback on Luca last season, Spider-Man and everything like that. But no, I do appreciate you coming on. For people that don't know about your page, do you want to tell everyone?
Yeah, appreciate that. So I have a platform on YouTube and pretty much anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. It's called Wilder Wolves Podcast. It is a fan-centric Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Started just a couple months ago, and it's been an incredible experience just covering the team and embracing a fan base that I'm so passionate to be a part of. I know the Dallas Mavericks fan base is incredible. So I'm excited to talk with you. But if you ever want to like listen to the Timberwolves side of the forest, then I would definitely appreciate if you took a look and maybe subscribed. But of course, for this show, I will be all in on the Mavericks.
Yeah, and of course. So I mean, I want to dive into it immediately. I think, and Wilder's going to give his honest opinion on all of this, guys. No bias from the Wolves fan. But I really want to talk about why I feel like the national media is disrespecting the Dallas Mavericks. We look at some of the articles and rankings that have come out. Bleacher Report ranked the Mavericks as the 18th best team in the NBA. ESPN gave them around a 42 and 40-ish record prediction, which would give them the 9th seed in the Western Conference. NBA.com predicted them as the 8th seed in the Western Conference. Yahoo came out with an article predicting the top 16 teams that would make the playoffs, and the Mavs weren't in that list. So overall, I just think there's a lot of disrespect when you look at the depth of this team. I get Kyrie Irving is going to be out probably anywhere from earliest December to latest March. That's just my assumption. There's no fact on that. And then I think after that, you look at the depth. You look at Anthony Davis can be a top 10 player in the NBA when he's healthy. Could be when he's healthy, a top 7 player. We saw him be an MVP candidate at the beginning of last season. We saw him, I'm going to say, be a number one option for the Lakers when they went on that 2020 finals run. I mean, in the bubble, he was just unreal, dominant. And so we see these versions of AD where he can truly lead a team. And I think when you have AD, and on top of that, you got Cooper Flagg, who's probably, I mean, the most hyped up prospect with Wemby since LeBron, if I had to guess. And the depth just keeps going and going. I'm very high on Derek Lively, PJ Washington, someone who really helped the Mavericks go on a big playoff run. So, I mean, the depth is just as absurd. I get people like to troll about the D'Lo signing, but he's a great fit. He's a very underrated facilitator, one of the top assist leaders in the league every single year. So, when you look at this roster, I don't think they deserve as much disrespect as they're getting.
Yeah, man. And I think when I just look at this Mavericks roster, I really love the way it's built. I really do. I think when you can build an NBA team and you have a ton of size, a ton of rim protection, and a fair amount of perimeter creation, that's just going to set you up further ahead of 80 plus percent of the NBA just by that structure. And like you said, I love Cooper Flagg. I genuinely think the white LeBron comps, there's some validity there. He has that level of dominance relative to his age. I mean, he was literally the best college basketball player as an 18-year-old who should have been in high school. He should have been worrying about prom, and he was worrying about national championships. So Cooper Flagg is legitimately one of the best prospects I've ever seen. And like you mentioned, AD, the rim protection there. I do think D'Angelo Russell does have a lot to give as, somebody who is on a contract year in a lot of ways. Like he's on a 2-year deal, but it's pretty flexible. 2-year, $13 million, I believe. The, the issue with the Mavericks, and it isn't a issue more about the roster, it's just literally availability. Because you mentioned it, I mean, Kyrie Irving's missing. If Kyrie Irving's on the court and everybody's healthy, I would have the Mavericks probably top 4 in the West. Legitimately, I think when you look at the structure of that roster, it's a top 4 roster in the West. Right there with like Houston, Minnesota, that group. That's the group Dallas would be in. But I would say that I think Kyrie being out for the first half of the year, plus the questions with AD's health, I can see this season, just this season, being a really valuable transition year for the Mavericks because not everybody's healthy. And when Kyrie gets on the floor, in my opinion, second half of the year, there's going to be another, transitional process there, trying to figure out how Kyrie fits with AD, and more so Cooper Flagg, when I think Cooper Flagg is really going to start getting the ball rolling because I think Cooper Flagg is going to be excellent in year one. And then going into year two, maybe that's when the boom happens. When Cooper Flagg, year one, he gets the reps as one of the primary players on the team this year. And the next season, he's kind of like Edwards year two, when D'Lo and Cat were figuring stuff out year one, and then Edwards figures it out year two, becomes an all-star caliber player, and then Minnesota's in the playoffs. I can see a formula like that for Dallas, but like a next step, because this is a better roster than that initial Anthony Edwards Timberwolves team in around 2021-22. So in my opinion, I think if everything goes right, Dallas is a contender, but I do question the health, and I don't think it would be a problem if this year is a transitional year and they are like a 6 to 10 seed, and then the next year, if everybody's healthy with the Cooper Flagg, they can go way up.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's a pretty fair analysis to give. A lot of people have said this could be the learning year for this roster, just getting used to it, especially with Kyrie coming back late. So I don't disagree with it. I have on record said that the 26-27 year really will show if the trade was approvable or not, if that makes sense. I think, 26-27, they'll have a full year together. I do think that, no one expected the Mavs to go to the finals on that 23-24 run, and they made moves and it ended up happening. So I do think when you have the core leadership of Kyrie and AD, if all goes well, like you said, they could be a contender. I think that this roster is built perfectly to go up against the OKC when they're healthy, or a Minnesota, or a Denver. I mean, I actually, and we'll dive into it, but I really like this roster against Denver, just because they can throw so many bodies at Jokic. And I think that's really necessary. We used to hear stories about how NBA teams would purposely build rosters so they would have 3 or 4 guys that could go up against Shaq. And I think that's sort of a similar analogy you can give with Jokic, in the way that you can throw AD, you can throw Lively, you could throw Gafford. I mean, there's just so much depth in that area. So that's why I like what the Mavs have constructed with this roster. I think, you as a Wolves fan, very well, there's a lot of times where no, I'm saying you as a Wolves fan, you do know that you guys run the Nas and Rudy lineup sometimes. There would be times where it was Rudy and Cat, or Nas and Cat. So that double big lineup is something that is just starting to become very popular in the NBA. You look at all the, I would say, legit contenders this season. When you look at Houston, they can run the Sengun Adams lineup. They can run the Sengun Capella lineup. You look at OKC with the Chet and Hardenstein lineups, and the list goes on. So I think roster construction wise, the Mavs went. I mean, it sucks, but unfortunately, the main thing is health. So when healthy, I think it's great. But that health is such a massive question mark for this team. And I think, unfortunately, that's why they're getting disrespected so much in these rankings, because all of these national analysts that are making these rankings are just purely basing it off of the health, if I had to guess.
I think that's what it is, because I think we've kind of come from this point where everybody was so upset about the Luka Doncic trade, But in a lot of ways, I think everybody's starting to warm up to Dallas in this way. Like, they got Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg, I mean, it wouldn't be shocking if he becomes like a legitimate Jason Tatum level player, if not more. That's how good he could be. So I think when you kind of consider everything, Dallas went from that spot where everybody's kind of making them the butt of every joke. And now it's like, okay, Dallas, whether you think it's luck or not, they got what they need with Cooper Flagg and Anthony Davis. And that makes them an even better, like you said, matchup for some of those elite teams in the West, because you can throw even Cooper Flagg, like having Cooper Flagg as a help defender, and you have Gafford and Lively and AD to throw at Jokic, or even Oklahoma City. When you guys beat Oklahoma City a couple years ago, a big advantage you guys had that series was the size, and you guys are just leaning into that. So I'm genuinely a huge fan of the X's and O's structure of the roster. Of course, I do think that the health is a very legitimate thing for this year, and hopefully that doesn't continue, because the only reason why Anthony Davis isn't considered a top 6 consensus NBA player, honestly, is the injury factor. You never know when he's not going to play. And we saw AD had that great first half when he came to Dallas, and in the second half, he got hurt, and he was out for weeks at a time. It got you Cooper Flagg, but it didn't eliminate that question for Anthony Davis. So it's always going to come down to health of Dallas. If you guys are healthy, I genuinely think you have one of the most well-constructed rosters, not only in the Western Conference, but the NBA. It's just a matter of, can they stay healthy? And this could be a really good thing for Dallas in the short term, too, in my opinion, because this season, it's kind of like when Kyrie and Hayward, that's the connection again, but Kyrie and Hayward got hurt, and then Tatum and Brown had to carry the reins and be the franchise players. I can see this where this year, with more reps with Cooper without Kyrie, that actually makes him more ready for when Kyrie comes back. So the maturation process isn't only smoother, but Cooper Flagg's a better player out of it. And then Dallas, like you mentioned, in 26-27, that's when they could be competitive with any team in the Western Conference.
For sure. I think, like you said, that 26-27 years, very legit. I think that if guys stay healthy, the roster won't look the same next year. I think a lot of the reason that I love Gafford, huge fan of Gafford. We got him on a great deal. I think one of the main reasons that Gafford is still on this roster is because they question Derek Lively's health. And so if the Mavs see a hole on this team, come trade deadline and Lively staying healthy, Gafford is a trade asset for them. Unfortunately, I do love Gaff, but that's just how it is. So there's so many question marks about this team to where I'm not sure if everything will get answered until that 26-27 season. Again, the Mavs also have their 26th first round pick, which could be something valuable when we don't really know when Kyrie's coming back. So I've said this multiple times. They're the second most unpredictable team in the NBA this year. First being the 76ers. I think that's just not debatable. No one could tell me what's going to happen with the 76ers season, and I would believe it. You have no idea. And I think the Mavericks are right behind them in that sense with injuries. How impactful is Cooper Flagg going to be, which carries us into our next topic. What is Cooper Flagg's ceiling for his rookie year? What do you think?
I think Cooper Flagg is no doubt the best rookie in this year's draft class.
Right.
And I think that's where it starts. Like, I love Dylan Harper. Ace Bailey showed up his first game, and you can go up and down the list. There's good players in this draft class. But Cooper Flagg, in my opinion, I think the most similar player comp we can make recently, like super recently, both situationally and also just the dynamic of what they bring to the table, it's Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
I think we saw Jason Tatum, and Cooper's a better prospect than Tatum was coming in. Cooper Flagg, though, Duke prospect, goes to a team with sustainable success, a team with some star questionable health situations, but goes to a team where he doesn't have to be the guy right away, and he gets to lean into things he's good at. Like, a big reason why I think Tatum is such a complete defender and playmaker is because he walked into a team that demanded that out of him. because Tatum was not nearly as disciplined as Cooper Flagg at the college level. He was a mid-range scorer who wasn't ultra efficient yet, and he wasn't like a super great defender or playmaker yet, and he's developed into this super complete two-way player who can play make as well. And I think that roster construction early was a big reason for that. Cooper Flagg is going to have a similar dynamic, but the difference is he's already that. He already wants to help defensively. He already is a good connective playmaker, and he can get buckets, and he's improved as a shooter. So now Cooper Flagg is honestly, I think, going to just adapt super easily and just be. We saw it his first preseason game. He started scoring in the second quarter, but it really was set up by the way he was playmaking and defending right away. And Cooper Flagg can do this on this team. And throughout the year, because there's no Kyrie right now, he's going to get more reps than maybe initially would have been expected. So I think that Cooper Flagg is set up for like a massive rookie season. Like if I had to guess, I think he's going to give you guys like 17 to 18 a game. I think he's going to give you 7 rebounds and over 4 assists and really good defense and probably near 60% true shooting. And that's as a dude who should be in the 2026 draft because he graduated a year early and he like was eligible for the draft by 1 week. If he was a week younger, he would be in the 26 class. So I have very high hopes for Cooper Flagg, and I think he's going to deliver.
Yeah, I think you said it very well. I'm in that same range with you about the points per game. Also, I have him about 16 to 18. I think he's going to start off in that like 13 to 15 range and then really find a flow. I've been very, very impressed. I mean, we saw him shoot a few threes in the preseason opener, and they were both off the dribble, which is like something that you always question for any kind of rookie. And, one was just like an ISO on the wing, probably had the ball in his hand for about 5 seconds and just shot it. And I was like, I could get used to that. And then the second one was off an AD screen on the wing, pull up 3. And I'm like, that's just really impressive. Like you said, this guy last year, he should have been worrying about prom. Yeah, and this guy is in the NBA. I think it was Mark Stein who said it, but I think he was just a few days too young before being ineligible to get selected in this year's draft. So it's just so impressive seeing all the stuff he's doing. And I look at Flagg. I think his ceiling for this year, I don't think he's an all-star, but I think he's really freaking close. I think that he'll have the ability to put up really good numbers with Kyrie being out. I think this is like my hot take. And this could be a burning hot take to you. I'm not sure how you're going to react to this, but I think Cooper Flagg has the potential to be in the higher percentage of NBA histories career-wise when it comes to triple-doubles. Just because of the fact, I mean, dude, I don't know if you got to see the Mavs preseason opener, but the facilitating was ridiculous. The IQ is through the roof. He's a very athletic rebounder. I mean, the passing, like he was, I saw a backdoor cut pass. I saw multiple times where he's in the post and he does a fake fadeaway and he just ditches it. He did it to Dwight Powell multiple times. And I just think his ability to score, and on top of that, the passing, this guy's potential is through the roof. I could see him putting up a triple-double or two this season. And that's why I say he's like just right below, I would say, his ceiling of being an all-star this year.
It's so funny how Nikola Jokic and Russell Westbrook have completely normalized triple-doubles because I think that's kind of becoming the standard of a complete player. Like, you have to get a triple-double. And, it's funny because I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think Cooper is such a well-rounded player, and it's funny because in high school, his playmaking was ahead of his scoring. He was a defender and playmaker turned into scorer, which is a very rare development process for a prospect like this. I do think that there's a world where Flagg could literally lead your team in assists and points and also be your top defender.
Like this year?
Not this year, but I think in a couple years down the road.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think the question for a player like Cooper Flagg, I do agree. Like there could be a couple of nights where he does get a triple double, maybe gets 1 to 3 this year, and he gets close to that 5 assist range and over 7 rebounds range, which is a very complete rookie year. The question long term, I think, with Flagg is, can you get that close to a triple double while being a good defender? Because the two guys who I think of with triple double, no disrespect to Russell Westbrook, he can't guard a cone, and Nikola Jokic can't jump over a cone. So that's the thing with the triple double thing. But I think Cooper Flagg, he's probably the most well-rounded prospect I've seen in the last handful of years. So I can't really rule out what he
Yeah.
does as a playmaker and rebounder year one.
It's fair. That actually, it's a very fair point. Defensive, like your defensive point about the triple doubles. I didn't think about it much. I will say my like only rebuttal to that is that Clay and Jay Kidd both mentioned already that they were just in shock, like in how great of shape he is. Like they were like he did not sit out a single drill at training camp. And I was like, we that what was it, 1.8%, 1.8%, that blessed us, those lottery odds. I gotta ask, what was your reaction to the Mavs winning the lottery? Were you watching?
You can find my Twitter history on this. I literally tweeted, "What if Dallas won the number one pick that morning?" Because I spent like months anticipating the conspiracies that would happen
Yeah,
if Dallas won the number one pick after the Luka trade. So my first thought when they got the number one pick is like, oh, of course, now the conspiracies are starting. Least
yeah.
shocking thing ever. Like we all manifested that. So that was my first reaction. I think there's a video of me like on Objectively Biased, which is a show I've done with John Tortorelli and Riv Brown.
Shout out the fellas. Shout out the
Yeah,
fellas.
pick a side, baby. You know, they do great stuff there.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a video of me like, what if Dallas got the number one pick? So it's one of those things I feel like I overly manifested, but I think Dallas is a great fit for a number one pick. Like,
Yeah.
thank God he's not in Washington or Charlotte right now. And he's on a team kind of like Edwards in a lot of ways. Of course, Edwards, the Timberwolves didn't have the reputation yet, but it just
Mhm.
came together when he came there. But like, what if Anthony Edwards ended up in a different situation? Like, look at the three teams behind him. He goes to Golden State, sounds like a good situation, but we saw how Kuminga and Wiseman turned out there for a raw athlete. And then like Charlotte and Chicago, like Edwards ended up on the right team, and I feel like Cooper Flagg, kind of like Edwards, ended up in a very solid situation.
I like that. I like the comp. I like that comparison right there. I do. Before we transition to the next topic, we're gonna look back at this episode and what is it, right? I'd say like 8 months, and we're gonna see how you did on this. Give me your Cooper Flag year one stat line prediction. Points,
Okay.
assists, rebounds.
17.2 points per game.
Okay.
I'll say 6.8 rebounds.
Okay.
There's a lot of front court depth on this team because he's playing with PJ, he's playing with Derek Lively,
I don't
AD.
know. I don't know if there's going to be a Maverick player. Like, I'm genuinely curious to see if a Maverick player averages 10 rebounds. If you put like 4 or 5 of these guys that we have on the team on a different team, they would average 10. But like you said, there's so much front court depth.
So I'll say 17.2 points, 6.8 rebounds, and I'll say 4.8 assists.
I
And
like
I
that.
and I think he's going to shoot 46% from the field, 35.5 from three, and 82 on the line.
Okay. I like that. I'm going to go because I haven't done this either yet. So, oof, I'm going to go 16.8 points per game. I'm going to go 5.7 rebounds per game, 5.2 assists per game. Splits, I'm going to go. He really does. He gets to the basket a lot. Rookie year, I'm going to go 48, 36, 85.
So same ballpark, I would say.
Yeah, I think, I do it's really tricky to predict stats with this team just because I said it on my last episode, actually. Like, there's going to be games where the Mavs win and they don't have a guy score 20 points.
Yeah.
And that's just because of the fact, you have D'Lo who can score the rock, AD, Cooper, PJ. Gafford is like one of the best paint scorers in the NBA. And then you got guys like Clay, Christie, Najee, Brandon Williams. Like, the depth is just insane, man. And I look at this just not even as a Mavericks fan, but as a basketball fan. This team, depth wise, probably, I disagree with me. It probably has the most depth, like stacked talent in the NBA, I would think. I mean, you could look at teams like OKC. I think if you look at the Mavs 1 through 15, it's probably the most balanced out depth. They have 12 guys, like, dude, like our 12th players, Caleb Martin, who was an NBA Finals starter a few years ago. Like, it's pretty wild.
And you also have, like, I really like Ryan Nembhard as an NBA prospect, just, kind of in that, honestly, that like TJ McConnell type role long term. I think he has that type of upside. And I mean, you look at the roster top to bottom. I think Dallas is up there. I would have to like really thoroughly look at rosters. Like, of course, instinctually, I look at Oklahoma City, and honestly, nobody in the Eastern Conference because the East just stinks.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to hate on it. I'll still give it to OKC right now, but I think Dallas, when Kyrie gets healthy and you look at the roster construction, literally the only two questions I will have when everybody's healthy is, one, will they not be healthy? And number two, if AD and Kyrie can be number ones. That'll be the only questions. I think AD's fantastic. I'm not sure if he's a number one alpha personality. And same with Kyrie. That's my only my only gripes. But like, when you look at the roster, I mean, this team is bound healthy wise to be right there at the top of the West hosting playoff series. And if Cooper Flagg, I think, can be the guy. The question is how quick, because he's still a kid. So the Cooper Flagg window, of course, I would say, like, if I had to pick between AD and Kyrie's window and Cooper Flagg's, I'm picking Cooper Flagg's every time.
Yeah, 100%. So that sort of leads into the next question I have. What do you believe the Dallas Mavericks ceiling is for this upcoming season? Do you think that the ceiling is winning the NBA Finals? Do you think it's Western Conference Finals, making the playoffs? Where do you stand on all that?
I think for this year, I would say second round in the playoffs. And the reason why is because I think
it's what Legler said as well. That's what Tim Legler said.
There's a lot of change on this roster that you just have to figure out, right? NBA teams take time, and I'll mention my Timberwolves team because I'm biased AF. It took Kat and Rudy their second year to figure it out. And then this team that they just had, like, yeah, they made the conference finals again last year, fantastic, but it took time, and they still had a fair amount of continuity outside of the Cat trade. So a lot of the time, these teams take more time than we want them to. And I just think about it like Cooper Flagg figuring out his identity, Kyrie Irving coming into the fold, and also like Kyrie and AD have barely played together too. So we have to see how that turns out as well. So just I'm struggling to envision them just fully synergize in that short period of time with all of those questions. But I don't think if they can't win like 55 games that it wouldn't be a successful season. If the year ends, Cooper Flagg, kind of like how Edwards did, figured himself out as a primary top 2 or 3 player on a playoff team as soon as next year. And then AD and Kyrie are coming into next year more synergized, healthy, confident, healthy offseason. I think if all those things happen, I think Dallas is set up to be a team that can make a conference finals next year.
I hear you. I think for me, it's difficult because I'm always going to be biased. I do think I look at this team. It's unfortunate. It's just
embrace it, man. I've embraced it. I've just said
objectively biased. Objectively biased.
I'm objectively biased. It's just who I am. So
yeah, I think I mean I do. I think that for any team in the West, if you want to get to the NBA Finals, you have to go through Oklahoma City. and you have to go through Denver. I think like those are those two teams. I think OKC and Denver, and this is my opinion, OKC and Denver are like at the top of the totem pole right now.
They
And
haven't, by
then
the way, Denver hasn't beaten the Timberwolves since the Biden administration. So I don't want to like pull like Minnesota below Denver like that right away yet because they still can't beat us.
I hear you, man. We're gonna talk about the Wolves. We're gonna talk about the Wolves. I got a few questions that I'm still not over you guys losing to Keel Alexander Walker, but
Yeah.
um I personally do have OKC and Denver in that first tier, and then if we're not like including the Mavs or anything, that second tier is where I go Houston, Clippers, and Wolves. And so, and not in order, but that is like that second tier I have. So I think in order to get through OKC and Denver, the Mavericks are built very well. Obviously, I explained earlier in the episode why I believe Denver. The reason why I believe OKC is that, first of all, I know some people take it as a joke. PJ Washington against OKC is like the craziest thing I've ever watched. And it's like, it's not a coincidence either because he did it the finals run year, but last year, the Mavs, I mean, how many losses did the Thunder have in the regular season? Like 12?
Yeah, and they
Or
lost
something
to
like
Dallas like 3 times, right?
Yeah, they lost to Dallas 3 times, and PJ Washington went absurd in all of those games. Like, it's just, I don't know what it is, but his build, his play style matches up very well with them. And I think you need those double bigs. I think a big question mark for the Mavs that we didn't discuss, obviously, is what AD's 3-point percentage looks like. If he can have it in those like low to mid 30s and not have it in those high 20s, that changes a lot for them. So I think the Mavs roster is structured pretty well to go against OKC, especially that's why I really like the D'Lo signing because you need multiple ball handlers against OKC. So I really like the D'Lo signing for that use as well. I personally think their ceiling. I mean, look, I think the Western Conference this year, any team from the West is going to win the finals. I don't think the East is winning the finals this year. I don't. Mavs fan, I'm going to say their ceiling is winning the NBA championship. I would say if I'm a basketball fan and looking at it from a basketball perspective, I would probably say Western Conference Finals. And then the year after that, I would say as a basketball fan and a Mavs fan, it's NBA Finals with health, obviously. But I would say I think second round exit or Western Conference Finals, I would be pretty happy with, honestly, with everything going on. I think that it all depends on health. It really does. But it leads me in to one of my final questions. If the Mavs and Timberwolves played each other in the playoffs, both healthy,
I would still ride with my boys. I would. I would. I will say I think Dallas is a tough matchup in a lot of ways because Minnesota's size is a big advantage against a lot of teams. And
right?
Dallas, I mean, we've seen it in the past. Like, not only do they have like bigs that are super effective, but they have super quick jumps. And that really affected Minnesota in the conference finals 2 years ago. I will say, though, I think Luka Doncic not being on the team in this context is helpful for Minnesota because Luka, with quick, springy bigs, can really set those guys up
Yeah.
and really expose our defense because our bigs aren't vertical enough. So I think you guys lose a little bit of that with Luka, and I just think Anthony Edwards is that dude, man. And I think I trust our offensive firepower just slightly more. Like, of course, Dallas has plenty with Kyrie and AD and those guys, but I do believe that this year Anthony Edwards is going to be in that like MVP conversation. I think he has that type of leap this year. So I think Minnesota has the best player in the series, and they just have more experience together now, so they kind of know how to play with each other. So I think those would be the biggest advantage points for Minnesota. But I mean, if Kyrie's going off and Minnesota has no answer for the three bigs and Cooper Flagg's doing his thing, I mean, you can never say never. I think Dallas, I genuinely mean this. I think Dallas, when healthy and realized, and I'm thinking it's more 26-27, But if it is 25-26 and they're ahead of schedule, I think this team could really beat anybody in the West in a given series because they have the length and the creation to really match up with anybody.
I like it. I like it. I got to ask you. So I've been, we spoke about before we started recording. I have been following this Timberwolves team. And one of my biggest question marks for them is, obviously Conley's age is it's getting up there.
Yeah.
How much do you trust Rob Dillingham?
That's a good question, and my honest answer, it's very to be determined. I have some worries about Rob Dillingham, and I would say my biggest worry about him is that for a kid that talented offensively, he has to be incredibly talented on that end because he's so small. And he's always, even as hard as he tries, he's not going to be a great defender. He just isn't. Some people in life, you know what? They don't look like Megan Fox, and as hard as they try, they'll never look like Megan Fox. Rob Dillingham's like that for size as an NBA player.
Yep.
So he's always going to be a bad defender. So he has to be a fantastic offensive player, and he's not yet. He's not. And I think it's a lot to do with he's a natural scorer, and Finch is trying to make him a point guard, and he's kind of in this phase where he's thinking the game, not feeling it. And it's kind of canceling out the scoring to such a massive extent and also contributing to a bigger amount of turnovers because he's missing reads because the game is fast to him because he's thinking the game. I think and I only watched one half of this Knicks game versus the Timberwolves, he looked really good this first half in contrast to early in preseason because he was being decisive as a scorer, and I think that's a massive difference for him. He can't think too much. He's too young to think too much. So if Rob Dillingham gets to that point where he clicks and isn't worrying about the game, just feeling the game while subconsciously doing a lot of what Finch wants, he has a very high ceiling, but he's the definition of a boomer bust prospect because if that doesn't happen, that's the difference between a borderline all-star and a guy who, is on a different team in 2 years. That's the difference. So
for sure.
I think there's a wide range with Rob, and so far I'm not fully encouraged.
Also, the thing that sticks out to me is that if Rob isn't performing well, Bones Highland can go take those minutes.
That's true.
Exactly. I will say I am very intrigued with two young guys that you have on your team. I think Terrence Shannon Jr. is just a great basketball player. I think he's someone who I hope you guys keep in your franchise for a very long time because the future is very bright on both ends of the floor. I used to write a lot about the Mavs, and one of the players that I was really intrigued with, and this was before we ended up getting the first overall pick, was Behringer.
Yeah.
I think Behringer's a stud. I spoke about the fact that I think he has a lot of similarities to Derek Lively II.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of want to get your thoughts on, do you think with the way this roster is constructed that obviously Behringer, but also Shannon Jr. have the ability to grow? Or do you think the Timberwolves need to make a move in one of those positions to see what they're really capable of?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I would say on the Terrence Shannon Jr. front, I think his opportunity is going to be there automatically this year. I actually think among Rob and Bernier and Clark, he has the most given opportunity because he's the guy they're going to want to replace Nickeil Alexander-Walker with. And the contrast between Shannon Jr. and Alexander Walker is Minnesota lacked rim attackers last year.
Yeah.
And Shannon is fantastic at that. And he also quietly has playmaking chops that are very, very good for a off-ball player, like very good. So you're adding this offensive threat who can move the ball and get to the rim at a very high level. I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity. Bernier is my favorite prospect on this Timberwolves team outside of Ant, Nas, and Jaden, who are kind of in that second wave of their career now.
You were at his summer league debut, weren't you?
Well, yes, I was. Yep.
That was something special, man.
That was unreal. He has a rare combination of tools and feel, yet being so raw. And I think what's really exciting about that, lively, definitely. But it's funny because I've heard Jackson Hayes comps for him. And I will say this about Jackson Hayes. The only reason Jackson Hayes hasn't worked out is because He has like literally like he could put his ears on the other side of each other's ears because there's nothing in the middle.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have any brain for the game, nor does he seem to have the desire for the game. So Jackson Hayes, that's why he hasn't worked in the NBA. Bernier is the biggest contrast. He like kind of being around him in summer league. One of the things I've heard about him is he's like straight business. Straight business. The kid isn't the one going to clubs on a Tuesday night. He is very much basketball, bed, basketball, bed, basketball, bed. He has a very interesting drive that I think you need to be as good as he is right now, starting 4 years ago, playing basketball. So I love his combination of he has top 1% tools. He has, an upward trajectory that's super intriguing. He has an NBA skill set, yet he has so much room to grow and he wants to grow. I think he has a very, bankable trajectory with the team he ended up on, playing behind Rudy Gobert, playing in this infrastructure. Tim Connolly teams know how to develop basketball players. Yeah. And like to your question about whether they're going to need to make moves, probably eventually, not right now. I don't think he needs to play right now because I think whether he plays or not, he's going to be behind Rudy, and I think that's valuable. But also, I don't think the roster completely excludes him. I think they could use a backup big because Naz Reid is more of a wing forward to me, like a big forward. So they could use a big with the right rotation. Somebody would have to get plucked out. That'd be uncomfortable to have Bernier in there, but I wouldn't rule it out. So I really am very excited about Bernier's potential.
I love it. Man. Well, I mean, I hope we could get a Mavs Wolves playoff series maybe this year, so we can that would be electric. But sure, no, man, this was a awesome episode to record. I'm glad we got to get some Wolves content in at the end as well. And I appreciate you coming on, man. Again, just you want to shout out the YouTube channel so everyone can check it out?
My guy, first of all, before I do that, it's an honor to be on this show. Thank you so much for reaching out to me on Twitter. And yeah, everybody. So if you have any interest in the Timberwolves in that fan base, it is called Wilder Wolves, which you can find on YouTube, all the social medias, and Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's a fan-oriented podcast that has a mix of its analysis, its interviews. We get educated voices around the Timberwolves community from reporters and big voices around the country, but also it's a community where it's all about like interactivity with the fans and always finding ways to keep the fan base enjoying and engaged within not only the team, but just the culture of the team, because truly sports is all about bringing people together. And that's the number one priority on the show. So if you guys would subscribe, I would super appreciate that on YouTube. It's been amazing growing it throughout the summer, and there's so much more we're going to do. So, and you also want to follow my general NBA content, What's on Tap NBA, on X and Instagram. I post little Instagram posts about basketball on the side too. So yeah, man, thank you for having me on the show and letting me shout out a little bit.
Of course, man. And everyone, be sure to check out Analytics Capper on X, one of the best sports handicappers out there. Be sure to check him out. Great plays from him. So be sure to tune in. MFFL Nation, I appreciate you all for tuning into this episode. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and stay tuned for more. We're less than 2 weeks away from regular season basketball, baby. We got a new episode dropping this upcoming weekend. The Dallas Mavericks will take on the Charlotte Hornets in a preseason matchup. So MFFL Nation, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Wilder, it's been a pleasure, my man. And we're out.